One of the things I hated the most in the Rings of Power was the creation of Mordor, how we took a reservoir with a spillway into trenches dug by orcs that fell into a volcano that burst out in a steam eruption that caused an entire pyroclast. It was an absolute disaster. It makes no sense. It blows the mind that this is how they came up with it, but they're proud of it. And that's what drives me crazy. In this article here, I think it was September when it first came out, this is in the Hollywood Reporter, Patrick McKay makes this point about this is why, right? They wanted to write the novel Tolkien never wrote. And so they took what he already had and made it better. They really think this. They really, really think this. So let me read this. A huge theme in Tolkien is the environmentalism and the way machines and industrializations destroy the land. We wanted that to be central and core all the time. It's a thing that comes up again and again throughout the show. So in the writer's room, we asked, what if Mordor was beautiful, all bucolic, like Switzerland? Well, good question, because Tolkien never said that. He said it was filled with fire and flame, and that's why Sauron went there. But they went on. And then what could happen that could transform it? We talked about the poisoning of the land, which starts in the first episode with the cow. That's right, the cow that has the thick chocolate milk that comes out of its udder. Then what you find out about the tunnels being dug, and sulfur is going up into the mountain. The tunnel that drives straight into the tree. For some reason, you could have gone around it. I'm just saying, it would have been nice. It all builds towards this geologically realistic way. I beg to completely differ with you, of igniting the mountain, which now blacks out the sky for a very practical reason. Adar, our villain, sees the orcs as his people and they deserve a home where the sun doesn't torment them. We're hoping it will take people by surprise. Well, it certainly did. And it took us by surprise because Tolkien already wrote that Mordor was a land of fire and flame and volcanoes. And that's why Sauron went there, not because he had to make it into that. It was already that. But you couldn't come up with a better story. You had to say Tolkien wasn't good enough, so you came up with yours that was roundly decried and honestly just became a joke. It was laughed at. I mean, Tolkien, he slaved over his works. He wanted to make sure that everything he did was completely and 100% valid. So even about his map, right? One of the problems with the Rings of Power was that distances didn't matter. And so in a podcast, in an episode of Window on the West, when we went over the entire map of Beleriand in the first age, right? I brought up this quote from Tolkien, letter 161 in April 1955. He wrote to Rainer Unwin, "This map is hell. I have not been as careful as I should in keeping track of distances. I think a large-scale map simply reveals all the chinks in the armor. Besides being obliged to differ somewhat from the printed small-scale version, which was semi-pictorial, I may have to abandon it for this strip." He was so particular. He slaved over the map and the distances and where people had to go and the time it took and the mountain ranges, right? It all had to make sense to him because it was worthwhile to make the little things matter. Because if the little things don't add up, the big thing collapses, right? And that's why the Rings of Power collapses. So this example of them creating Mordor because they wouldn't accept the way that Tolkien created is just another one of those examples where they believed they could write something better than Tolkien, but honestly, it came down to something completely out of left field that no one bought into. Thanks for watching. Make sure you don't miss any future Torque Dailies by clicking the subscribe button and that little bell there. And you can also become a patron by going to theonering.com/patron, where you can join us in our Discord chats and our private live chats.